In this practical section, we'll discuss where to share the gospel, when and when not to approach people, transitioning from a topic to the gospel, things to discuss at the closing of sharing the gospel, how to progress, and then what does success look like? Locations. You can share the gospel anywhere. Be prayerful and be on the lookout for the Holy Spirit's prompting, but you can share at work, at parties. We've had people share while selling or buying something on Craigslist. People go down to the bus stop and share. We take a team to Colina and share. But you can share with waitresses, waiters while eating, and at college campuses. You can share anywhere. Now, we can talk about when to approach and when not to approach someone, but if God is leading you, that's going to trump everything we discuss. However, in general, you probably don't want to approach someone if they're going to be distracted. For example, a parent watching his or her child at the park will be distracted. Someone running or exercising in the gym will be distracted. Again, if God is leading you, then that prompting trumps everything. Transitioning to the gospel. The farther the conversation is away from the deep and sensitive thoughts of the gospel, the longer the transition will be. Going up to someone and being straightforward with them on what you want to discuss can immediately take you into the gospel without transitioning. For example, going up to a stranger and telling them, "Hi, my name is Cyril. Can I talk to you about Jesus while you wait for your bus?" That reduces transition time to 0. I can just go straight into the gospel. Here's more advantages to being straightforward in your approach. First of all, it eliminates 90% of confrontation because those who say yes are willing to talk about Jesus. Secondly, there's no transition time like we just said, so you can go straight into the gospel. Third, God might be drawing those people and he might have prepared them for you showing up that day. Fourth, those people will be actively listening and not just listening to prepare the rebuttal. And lastly, it saves time in harvesting because if people say no, then just move on to the next person. However, if I wasn't even planning on sharing the gospel and I sparked up a conversation with someone, then I need to transition to the gospel. And the farther I am away from the deep and sensitive topics, the longer the transition. For example, if I'm talking about sports, it'll be a challenge getting to the gospel unless we start talking about a player that either is hurt or maybe a player that died. Then we're getting closer to the deep and sensitive topics where transitioning to the gospel is easier. From there, you might want to develop what I call nudge discussions. These are questions or comments that get you closer to the deep and sensitive topics. For example, if someone was talking about motorcycles, we can nudge the topic by discussing the 3 motorcycle accidents we had in 1 week. That gets us to discuss the deeper topic of death, where we can then transition to the gospel. Also, think about questions people usually ask you where your answer could take you straight into the gospel. For example, here's a question. What do you do in your spare time? This is your cue to say, "Oh, I share Jesus with people. What are your thoughts about Jesus?" And right there, you're in the gospel. When I retired, I knew I would be asked, "What are you going to do now?" Or "What are you going to do when you retire?" This gave me the opportunity to say, well, as a Christian, I really want to spend time focused on things that have eternal implications. So I plan on talking to people about Jesus. What are your thoughts about Jesus? And in that way, I was able to share the gospel with many people at work. So, bring up the topic about retirement at work and you could go straight into the gospel. And there's other questions or topics where you can have an answer and that answer can take you directly into the gospel a lot easier. Now, here's a caution. Always consider how much time you have. For example, is this a person you see every day at work? Well, you'll have more time available in the days to come. Or is this someone you'll never see again? Are you sitting next to them on a 5-hour flight? Or are you at a bus stop where you have 8 minutes? And you'll need to adjust your presentation appropriately for the person and the situation. So continue to hone in your transitional skills. When closing the presentation, there's a few things to consider. First of all, give the person a sense of urgency by letting them know that they can die at any time. Death is not prejudice. Secondly, see if they have a Bible, and if not, try to give them one. One good tool I've used is the QR codes that they can scan and at least have the Bible on their phone. Now, in order to do this, you want to go to the Bible website or app, go to the top of the address bar to get the QR code. Once the QR code is on your phone, you can show it to others. They can scan it from your phone, and they will have the Bible webpage or app on their phone. Lastly, you can also invite them to your church or find a church. So, what does success look like? The fact that you are growing in your gospel sharing, consider that success. The fact that you're listening to the thoughts and the prompting to share the gospel, that should be considered success too. Try not to judge yourself too harshly on how you shared the gospel. The people you're sharing with will have one of three answers. They'll either say no, yes, or maybe. In Acts 17:32-34, Paul was talking at the Areopagus, and when he was done, some mocked him, some joined him, and some said, "We'll hear you again about this." And that was their no, yes, and maybe. But continue to put in the work to get better, study and practice, and continuously sharpen your gospel sharing tools. And that was the practical. Locations, approach, transitioning, closing, progressions, and success. So in this 101 course, we discussed personal preparation, God's justice, God's love, methods, and the practical. You are definitely on the right track. Thank you so much for your yearning to share the gospel, and may God bless you as you bless others with the sharing of his gospel for his name's sake and to give him the glory.